Washington versus Texas in the college football playoffs. Quinn Ewers versus Michael Penix Jr. Who will win this game? Who are the X factors and the prospects that you need to know? We're going to tell you all of this coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Thank you for being our everydayers. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout and a senior draft analyst. And I got to kick this introduction over to my guy, as always, Mr. LSU Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ with those LSU Bengal Tigers, man. And what, man, the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, where we talk everything college football, we talk everything NFL football, and what we say, what, man, it all starts with the NFL Draft. DP, today's slate, man, we are talking college football playoffs, semifinals, right? We talked Alabama, Michigan yesterday. Today, we are talking a game that's probably going to be a lot more explosive, right? I'm expecting some 30 and 40 points, something like that, right? We're talking Texas versus Washington. We're going to break this thing down. We're going to go offensive prospects. We're going to go defensive prospects, and then we're going to give you the X factors for the game and those game picks. But DP, before we get started, man, why don't you hit them with our title sponsor?
Guys, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Last year, Keith, during bowl season, these two teams faced off. I had it wrong. We talked about it a couple episodes ago. Texas actually lost that game. Washington beat them by, a touchdown. I think it was 27-20. And when you look at the offensive prospects on the side of the ball, I think for me, it starts with Texas's quarterback, Quinn Ewers, a guy that we don't know if he's going to enter the draft or stay for another year. But I think this is a game for him to solidify himself as one of the best quarterbacks in the 2023 NFL draft class. And I think if he goes out there, this is to me, he's one of the more just natural throwers and passers of the football, right? And does he have elite arm talent? No. But he still has the ability to get the ball down the field with touch, timing, anticipation, and accuracy, right? That connection with him and his receivers, AD Adonai Mitchell, and especially Xavier Worthy, that's a legit connection that they have. He knows when to release the ball, at the top of his drop based off of where those guys are. If it's a vertical stretch, a go route, a hitch, comeback, he has that connection. He knows when to get the ball out with timing. So I think this game is going to be pivotal for him because it's truthfully, Keith, this game, I think this will decide if he does return. I think this is the first step of deciding if he returns or go to the draft. Because if he balls out and you go to the national championship game, I don't see how or why you would want to go back to the University of Texas. So I think he's probably one of the top offensive prospects to keep their eyes on.
Yeah, I agree. And just to simply put it, right, he reminds me a lot of Drew Brees, right? I live in New Orleans, right? Lived in New Orleans majority of my life. You're talking about those 6-foot quarterbacks that are timing and rhythm guys. They won't wow you with the arm strength and, arm talent and velocity and all that, right? But they just simply know how to get the job done, high IQ players. But DP, I'm going to keep talking about this Texas offense, right? You're talking about wide receiver Xavier Worthy, who has the opportunity to be X factor. Man, I watched his film and finished up his final report. DP, he may be the most explosive player when you're talking about simply running away from defenders. So if Washington doesn't get hands on this guy or they have a true answer for him, he's a guy that can have multiple 2, 3, 50-yard, right? Those explosive type plays if they draw him up, dial him up with Steve Sarkisian. And then the other guy I want to pay attention to is their tight end, Jatavian Sanders. You've seen in the Oklahoma State game, they got him involved in some different ways, DP. They got him involved in end rounds, right? Those handoff type situations just to get the football in his hands. And what you see is his run after the catch ability and his athleticism in the open field. So those are the playmakers I believe that would show for Texas, right? And obviously we talked about AD Mitchell, but DP, I know Washington is your school, right? And I want to get them their just due. And there's a reason why we're expecting to be this to be a high scoring game is because both teams have a lot of offensive weapons, right? And I know you have some offensive weapons that you want to talk about for Washington.
Of course, it starts with the quarterback position. Michael Penix Jr., right? A guy transferred in, from Indiana after 2 torn ACLs, and he has helped uplift this program, right? And shout out to the Senior Bowl, Jim Nagy. They'll do their Senior Bowl graphics, and they talk about a quarterback is like program lifter. That's what Michael Penix has been for Washington, man. Because they've had talent, guys. Like they've had talent. They just didn't have the quarterback play, right? So he comes in and he's a guy that can absolutely spin it deep down the field, tight, like cover 2 hole shots. He's got that strong arm, the arm talent that we want. I think the big thing for him is going to be when he's pressured, because he's going to get pressured. This Texas defensive line, which we'll get into in the next segment, they can get after him and they can get after this offensive line. What does he do with pressure? Because he is not the most athletic or most creative mover in terms of when you move him off the spot, right? When you move him off the spot, when you make him throw on the run, that's where you see some of the decrease in arm talent and velocity and accuracy and ball placement. So it's going to be big for him because a lot of people even though all the numbers look great for him, people are wondering, is Michael Penix truly a first round pick? The torn ACLs, he's a little bit older of a prospect, but he's like 23 or something like that. Like, people are worried, and I understand the worry, right? But he's been healthy back-to-back seasons. But this is going to be a game where it's like, all right, Michael Penix, I need to see that first game versus Oregon, Michael Penix. Because Keith, it feels like we haven't seen that guy since that game. You know what I mean? Like, he kind of took a slide, and even against Oregon the second time, he wasn't great. So it was like, all right, which Michael Penix are we going to see this Monday coming on New Year's Day? That's going to be the question for me.
Yep. Well, and I want to get into Washington's weapons, right? Their offensive weapons, because that's going to be a big part of it, DP. When we're talking about, I think these games, and you said it for Michael Penix already, this is going to determine the draft placement. I think for Rome Odunze, right? This can play some draft placement. And then even with a guy like Jalen Polk, right? Like if he decides to declare and come out, I mean, having a big game, right? And then you let's say you beat Texas, and then now you're on to the national championship, whether that's playing Alabama or Texas, right? Like there's a lot of implications for these teams. What offensive guy are you looking for in this Washington team? We're talking about draft prospects.
Of course, Rome. You know what I mean? Absolutely Rome, because he's wide receiver 1, and Texas is going to have to try and figure out how to take him away. And I think Oregon started to try and double team and put the safety over the top and not give him those one-on-ones where it's like Michael Penix is like, all right, cool. I'm gonna throw that back shoulder. I'm gonna throw that jump ball. I'm gonna throw the deep ball. Rome is a good route runner. He's got fluid, loose hips. He can sink and drive out of the break. Like for a 6'3", 210, 215-pound receiver, he moves well. You know what I mean? He's not as dynamic at the start, you know what I mean, off the ball, but he's still got good enough explosiveness to threaten you vertically, right? So I think it will be him and, of course, Jalen Polk and then Jalen McMillan. But Keith, one guy that two guys, one's a playmaker, the other's an offensive line. Dylan Johnson, the running back, right? I think he's a senior this year. Dylan Johnson, strong runner, and they've started to lean on him for good reason, down the stretch of this season, right? Down the stretch, 6'2", 220. Like, this guy runs physical downhill. So I want to definitely keep my eye on him, because with this 2024 running back class looking very depleted because guys are going back to school, Dylan Johnson has a chance to make himself maybe the Zach Charbonnet of this class. And then, of course, I'll finish it off. Troy Fautanu, man, left tackle. Keith, I put in my report, he can kick down at guard and be an all-pro at guard. I would start him at tackle. I'm letting him feel at tackle first. And with his athleticism, his footwork, the lateral agility, that's the hand strength. I heard that he has like 34-inch arms. We'll see when we get to, the draft process. He could potentially be Rashawn Slater if you let him. That's just my opinion. I think that he has all the tools to be that. I don't want to immediately kick him down. Give him a shot at tackle, guys.
Well, no, I like that. I like that. But yeah, that's the offensive prospects, man. Listen, this is what we're about to do, right? Because there's two sides to the football, man. We went through the offensive side of the football. Now we're going through the defensive prospects to look out for this game, man. And I'm gonna tell you this: I'm about to list off a host of guys for the University of Texas on that defense side of football. So make sure y'all stay tuned.
When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Guys, this is simple. LinkedIn is not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Okay, thankfully with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. On the defensive side of the ball, Keith, we started with what? Texas on the offense. Let's go to Washington here real quick. Braylon Trice, the edge rusher, he stands up in the 2-point stance. He puts his hand down in the dirt in the 3-point. He's got a quick first step for a bigger body guy. You know what I mean? I think he's got good hand usage. He knows how to use his arm length. Listed at 6'4", 274 pounds. He's a guy that, based in a even front 4-man defensive alignment, this is a guy that could be your strong side defensive end, in my opinion, because he holds up pretty well against the run and against Texas, who is a balanced offense. But when they do have to throw in Quinn Ewers, if you give Quinn Ewers time, he is going to light you up with these weapons. Braylon Trice is going to be big. Braylon Trice and Zion, ZTF. Zion, I hate saying his last name. I always mess it up. Zion Tupaloa Fatui. Close enough. Like, these two guys off the edge, it's going to be pivotal for them, Keith. It's going to be absolutely pivotal for those guys to get off the ball. You know what I mean? Get this offense off the field, especially on third downs. But, Keith, you talked about Xavier Worthy, right? We talked about Xavier Worthy, Adnan Mitchell in the first segment. A guy who absolutely I have circled, senior corner Jabbar Muhammad, right? I want to paint that picture for the listeners and viewers who haven't been, sticking with us. If you're new here, you know what to do. Subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that good stuff. Jabbar Muhammad, you go back to the game, the 2 games against Oregon. He was the only option to shut down and to lock down Troy Franklin, a guy that's dominated almost every defense that he's faced, almost every corner, every defense that he's faced this year. So much so in the second game, he was targeted one time against Jabbar Muhammad. Jabbar Muhammad broke up the pass, and they never targeted him again in that game. So it just lets you know how good this young man is. Footwork, agility, patience. He's technically refined. When he's like really under control and poised, this young man does not really he doesn't open the gate too soon. He just stays controlled. And I love that about him. And I think now what kind of can throw that off, Keith, is as a defensive back coach, speed. Speed can rush up any defensive back's process, and Xavier Worthy can do that. So Jabbar Muhammad, to me, is a guy that I have circled as one of the most impactful players for this defense for the Washington Huskies.
Yeah, no, and I like that. But DP, I told you I was going to do it, DP. I'm about to list off this host of names for the University of Texas defensive prospects to look out for, man. And what they say, everything is bigger in Texas, right, DP?
Yeah.
Well, they may have the biggest defensive lineman in college football with Tavondre Sweat, man. Listed at 6'4", 360 pounds. Check out for this guy, right? Because you just talked about Johnson being able to run the football, right? Well, you know who's going to help stop that run? A 360-pound guy that you're going to have to double team. But man, you talk about polar opposites, DP. You know how they say opposites attract, right?
Yeah.
You know, they say the yin and the yang, right? You know what? You know who his running mate is? Who's just as talented? A defensive lineman that's 6 foot and barely touching 300 pounds, right? But he's just as impactful, and that is defensive lineman Byron Murphy. So look for this tag team, DP, because I'll say this, what they say, right? The quickest path to a quarterback is a straight line, right? Straight up the middle. Byron Murphy has the potential to be disruptive to Michael Penix if he can get in there, right? And I don't know if it's going to draw the comparisons, DP, but if he has a good game, don't be surprised if people start saying, hey, that guy kind of looks like Aaron Donald, right? Nobody's going to want to say it, but don't be surprised if you start hearing whispers because he's built really well, has a really good frame and an explosive first step. But, man, I want to continue, right, because you're talking about Barron Sorrell for this defensive line on one edge, right? Then you're talking about Alfred Collins on this edge, on the other edge, and all of these guys are draft eligible prospects, right? And then we'll talk about the second level and the guy that we'll be able to see at the Senior Bowl, Jalen Ford, right? A guy that's already, I believe he's invited and he committed already to the Senior Bowl. So we'll see him play the linebacker position. And then the last guy on this Texas defense, DP, guy that I just finished watching yesterday, and that is nickel safety kind of corner hybrid type of player, Jahdae Barron, right? And this guy that he'd had the big time interception against Alabama, Jalen Milroe, right? He's an instinctual player, and you know what, Michael Penix, right? He likes to kind of find those hole shots. So I'll be interested to see how Jahdae kind of plays that game mentally, right? Like, does he try to bait? Because what he did against Jalen Milroe, he was able to bait Jalen Milroe, I believe, into thinking that it was man coverage. He came off of his wide receiver and undercut the route for the interception. So, yeah, Texas is loaded defensively, DP, when it comes down to draft prospects. And matter of fact, and I got one more guy, DP. I said I was done. I got one more guy, though. And I think he's going to make a really good matchup with your Washington wide receiver, Rome Odunze, and that is Texas cornerback Ryan Watts. Guy has really good length. I think he's listed at 6'2", 6'3"-ish. I remember him from recruiting and everything. I think he started his career at Ohio State, then transferred back home because he's from Texas. But I think it's going to make for a good matchup, man, because the length and athleticism is going to be there. Now it's just going to be like, okay, can you cover this guy one-on-one? So, yeah, I thought this is going to be a fun matchup, man, because it's going to be about, attacking players, right, in situations and scheming things up. And this Texas team has a lot of talent.
No, and Keith, I think when you were talking about Byron Murphy, one thing, another play we talked about Aaron Donald, Elijah Cansey, Javon Hargrave, he reminds me of him as well. Fit similar build. He's listed at like 6'1", 305. I think Javon Hargrave is like 6'2", 308. Guys that can play, that you'll see line up at the 1, line up at the 3 tech, do different things and can collapse the pocket. And I think that's where, like, Byron Murphy is going to be very pivotal in this game, Keith, because like you talk about with Michael Penix, he's a guy that you want to move off the spot, right? So it's like the edge rush of like Barron Sorrell and and those guys, Ethan Burke and all those, Alfred Collins and those guys, like those guys coming off the edge, like that will impact him. But he can step up and he will step up, right? But if you collapse that interior, now you're making him drift back and different things like that. And if the edge rushers are doing their job, now you kind of closed him in, and there's nowhere to go, nowhere to step in. And what you want to do with a pocket quarterback, which is what Michael Penix says, you want to muddy that thing. You want to muddy the pocket where it's like, listen, man, there's no clean spots for you to step in. It's bodies on bodies on bodies all around you, and you have to, and that's how you get them rattled, man. But I like the name pulls here, Keith, because it feels, especially in that secondary, this is a money game for a lot of those kids, man. Mm-hmm. This is a money game. When you go up against Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, Rome Odunze, and Michael Penix at the helm, you got a chance to really make yourself some money as an NFL draft prospect, because when scouts turn this tape on, or when the scouts are there and they see you, if you walk out of there, you're Watts and you pick him off, you're Ryan Watts, you pick Michael Penix off twice, you shut down Rome Odunze. Now you force scouts and us as a talent evaluators, not so much you because you've already watched them, but for somebody like me, now I turn on tape on, I'm like, hey man, like this dude locked down Rome Odunze. That's not an easy task. So I like those name pulls. Like I said, this is a big money game for that secondary. I think we all know about that defensive line for Texas, but those secondary players for Texas are very under the radar, and it's time for them to wake some people up.
Yep. Hey, man, we talk offensive prospects. We talk defensive prospects. Now, coming up next, man, we are talking X factors, right? Which guys, which guys are going to have to make the plays in order for their team to win, in order for their team to go to the national championship, man, and finish out this season strong. And then we're going to give you our game picks. So coming up next, man, we have X factor. We have game picks. Stay tuned.
After you've eaten the burger, the pizza, the wings, the chips and dips, whatever you have as your watch party favorites during the week and during game day, listen, what better way to finish it off than with a nice dessert, a delectable dessert that's been dropped off at your front door. If you live in the Greenville County area of South Carolina, like I do, you can use DoorDash and get Cheesecake Factory delivered to your front door. All the assortment of flavors and variety of just that delectable cheesecake, whether it's Reese's peanut butter cup, red velvet, chocolate, whatever it is, right? Whatever tickles your fancy, whatever it may be, they can deliver it right to your front door. Okay, guys. So understand something, man. You can kick back at kickoff, at halftime. You don't have to worry about trying to leave or exit because DoorDash can bring the watch party favorites to you as well as your dessert. You just got to order on DoorDash. Let me help you with that. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCK23. As the weather continues to get colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Guys, right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. Let me repeat that. New customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, what do I always tell you? Stop thinking. Go do it. Put some back into it. Put some action to it because there's no better time or place to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and kick off or continue to kick off the NFL season. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to continue to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. X factors for each team, Keith. I think for me, I look at Texas and my X factor is going to be, I'm not going to go to the backfield. I'm going to go to the right tackle spot. And I'm going to go to the offensive line. I'm going to go both tackles, actually. Kelvin Banks Jr. and Christian Jones. Keith, because with these two edge rushers for Washington, if you can keep them dogs on the leash, pun intended, if you can keep the dogs on the leash, that allows Quinn Ewers to feel comfortable back there and let him work. Those are the two best defenders on that defensive line, and I think we all know that for Washington. So Christian Jones, who is a big tackle, Kelvin Banks, I think he's a true sophomore, so he's not draft eligible yet, but both of them good players from everything I've heard and what I've seen them when I watched that Texas offense. They're going to be pivotal. Those are my two X factors for Texas. In terms of Washington, Keith, man, you can go a lot of different ways here, man. But I'm gonna go. I talked about Jabbar Muhammad, and he's the blue chip. He's the guy in that secondary. Elijah Jackson, the redshirt sophomore corner, I think he'll be the guy. I envision he'll probably be the guy on Adonai Mitchell. So I think that's a situation where we're going to see Jabbar probably on Xavier Worthy. Depends on how much they move him around, pre-snap, motion, stuff like that. Elijah is going to have to play probably the best game of his career. Elijah Jackson going to play the best game of his career on the outside when he does see Adonai, because Adonai is a receiver that I think to this day doesn't get a lot of talk in this draft class. Smooth route runner, quick-footed, can get in and out of breaks well. He may not be the most explosive athlete, Keith, but this young man just knows how to play ball, man. So I think even if you limit Xavier Worthy and stop the big plays, you got to still find the answer for Adonai Mitchell, man. So I want to put Elijah Jackson on the hot seat for the Washington Huskies.
No, I like that, DP. I'm gonna steal one out of your book, man. So for the Washington Huskies, right? If you tell me to pick an X factor, I'm going to pick this offensive line because we talked about Michael Penix needing to stay clean, right? And I think this may be the best defensive line that Washington has played thus far, right? When you're talking about just being able to rush in bunches and throw different things at you, because like we said, so many of these defensive linemen have different varying varying skill sets, right? So which should be fun to pay attention to see which matchups go along this defensive line. Then if you ask me for Texas, man, who are the X factors, right? I'm gonna pick this wide receiver core. Go out there and show why you are the best, because they should, DP. When I look at the skill set of Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, Jatavian Sanders, they should be amongst the top, like talked about, regarded, right, having conversations among the top just skill set positions or skill positions in the entire nation, right? If not the top, DP, because we talked about Xavier Worthy being the most explosive wide receiver in all of college football. You talking about Adonai Mitchell, listed at 6'3", 200 pounds, smooth route runner. You talking about Jatavian Sanders, who's probably the second best tight end in this group. And then you're talking about Quinn Ewers, right? One of the better quarterbacks in all of college football. So I'm looking at this receiving core, right? And saying that y'all are the X factors. Go make some plays, right? Go just flat out go put 50 on them. Like, you know what? It's simple. Y'all just can't run with us, right? Like, y'all are good. That's cool, but y'all can't run with us. So that's what I'm turning to. But DP, I'm about to turn it back on you. And we went through everything but game picks. Now I'm about to ask you, who do you think is going to win this game?
I flip back and forth on this one, Keith. I think this is going to be the most competitive game out of the two of the semifinals. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Texas, Keith. I'm gonna go with Texas because I think their defensive front is more established and better and deeper. Like you know what I'm saying? You worry when you there's 2 or 3 guys you got to worry about with Washington. There's multiple guys you got to worry about with Texas, and all the different like blitzes, different looks they can throw, the different ways they can pressure the quarterback. I'm gonna go with Texas in this regard, and I also think that Quinn Ewers has something to prove to a lot of people. We're not saying that Michael Penix doesn't, but Quinn Ewers I think has a lot to prove. You know what I mean? So I'm picking. I'm gonna pick Texas. I think they are the more complete team of the two, and that way, I get my desire. I get Texas versus Bama Part 2.
Yep, I was just about to say that. If you pick Texas, then guess what, man? We're getting a repeat. We're getting a Texas versus Bama matchup. DP, I'm right there with you. I'm going to pick Texas in this game just because I think they have a couple more playmakers than what Washington has.
I think it's a high-scoring game, though, Keith. I think my prediction is 40 to 37. I think it's a 3-point game, but somebody's hitting 40.
Okay, now I like that, and I can very well see that, man. When you're talking about just both sides of both teams, right, and what they're able to offer offensively. So I agree with you, and I'm also, like I said, going to pick Texas. I think there's going to be a Texas versus Alabama rematch, and it should be a fun one. But yeah, I say everybody, hey, y'all stay tuned, man. We listed off the draft prospects. We listed off the X factors for this game. Pay attention to those guys, man. That we watch the film. We believe those are the guys that are going to make plays in this game. They're going to have to make plays the way the team is constructed. But DP, man, that wraps up another show of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, man. If you haven't hit the like button, go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe to the hottest YouTube channel out there, man. This thing is going. It is growing. We are starting this community, and we are getting into draft season. So you're going to want to hear all the really good conversations that we talk about, we discuss with y'all, man. And like we say, man, y'all are our everydayers. I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code, man. That is my co-host, man. Damian Parson, you can find him on X at DP_NFL, man. Y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Listen, guys, we got football all weekend, so enjoy it and come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.